He was looking for a sugar baby and offered $700 a week. No strings attached. It sounded way too good to be true. But I was a broke college student in desperate need of cash. I decided to take the risk. I swiped right on his profile. He looked young for his age. His name was Jack. He claimed to own a successful business. He never told me what kind of business it was. Our first conversation was just small talk. Then he asked for my payment information. The notification popped up on my phone almost instantly. I stared at the $700 for 20 minutes. I honestly thought I was dreaming. But then his message appeared. He asked what I wanted in return. I told him I was open to suggestions. He said he just needed me to do a few favors. I started to worry it would be something uncomfortable. I asked for details. He told me the first task was to pick up a delivery. That sounded like a simple errand. But even I wasn't completely naive. Why pay $700 for a pickup? I asked if it was from the post office. He said no. He gave me an address and his phone number. He wanted to move off of Tinder quickly. The instructions were very specific. There was a key on a blue flower pot outside. I had to grab a package and bring it to his house. He told me to lock the door every time I entered or left. That seemed a bit paranoid. But I promised him I would do it. I drove to the location. The neighborhood looked like a ghost town. One specific house looked completely abandoned. It was surrounded by much nicer homes. Suddenly, a man appeared in the doorway. He was massive and covered in tattoos. He looked terrifying. He told me to stay right where I was. He walked out with a small box. He told me it was stained on the corners. He asked if I could open my trunk. I did as he asked. Before I drove away, he said one chilling thing. He told me to watch out. I didn't ask why. I just turned up my music and drove. I reached Jack's house. It was a massive mansion with beautiful landscaping. I took the key and went inside. I locked the door behind me immediately. The interior was filled with expensive furniture. I felt like I was in a palace. I set the box on the table. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jack. He told me not to answer any calls except from a man named Marvin. Then, I heard a phone ringing in an office nearby. The caller ID said it was Jack calling me. I felt a chill down my spine. I didn't answer it. I left the house and locked the door behind me. Over the next few months, he gave me more tasks. I drove luxury cars to different locations. I delivered briefcases for people I didn't know. Sometimes I had to wait in houses with other people. I earned $3,000 in total. Then, Jack gave me a new offer. He wanted me to stay at his house overnight. He offered me $1,000. There were some very strange rules for the night. First, I couldn't use any faucets between 9 and 11. Second, I wasn't allowed to open the door after 10. Third, if a certain closet was open, I had to sleep in the library. Fourth, if the gardener knocked on the windows at midnight, I had to hide. Finally, I had to leave the TV on static all night. I followed every single rule. I felt uneasy but stayed for the money. I chose the library because the closet door was wide open. I sat on the couch and tried to relax. At 10:16, the doorbell rang loudly. Then, someone shouted that they were the police. They told me to open up or they would break in. I didn't move. I stayed perfectly still. My heart was racing against my ribs. Then, a different voice yelled from outside. It sounded like Jack calling my name. He begged me to let him in. I sat in the dark and listened. I realized something terrifying at that moment. If they were the police, why would Jack be yelling? If Jack were home, why would he need me to open the door? I realized then that I wasn't just doing favors for a rich man. I was being used as a shield. The people outside weren't police officers. They were looking for someone inside the house. And they didn't know I was there. Jack knew exactly where I was hiding. He had told me not to open the door because he didn't want the strangers to find me. He didn't want them to know I was part of his operation. I was just a pawn in a game I didn't understand. The reason for the rules became crystal clear. Each rule was designed to keep me hidden from the people searching the property. The policing was a distraction for whoever was actually hunting Jack. They were looking for him, and he used me as his human shield. If I had opened the door, they would have found me. And if they found me, they would have known where he was hiding or who was helping him. He didn't care about my safety. He only cared that I stayed out of the way. Every time I did a favor, I was moving closer to his dangerous world. He wasn't a sugar daddy looking for company. He was a man running from something very dangerous. And I had just collected a paycheck to be his secret. The silence of the house felt heavy and suffocating. I realized that if I ever met him in person, he would probably disappear before I could see his face. Now, every time I think about those nights, I feel that same chill. I wonder what those people outside were really looking for. Was it just a crime? Or was it something much darker? I stayed on that couch until the sun came up. When the sun rose, I left and never looked back. But some questions still haunt me today. What do you think he was hiding from? Was he protecting me, or was I just a convenient shield?